right now. Worldwide, we're seeing it unfold right in front of us, and I've included Israel here in the tracker for all peoples worldwide as of July 31st, 2021. And as you can see, we're looking at 66.81% is the tally at the moment, according to them, their figures. Share of people fully abominated against this thing that's happening in the world right now. You see that the total above that is 62.05. And underneath it, there's another small percentage, which is the share of people only partly abominated. And that's 4.76%. It's a total of 66.81%. Now, I really think that this is scriptural. I'm gonna bring it right back to scripture. The 62.05%, when you see that amount get close to the 66.66% for people that are fully abominated, you are going to discover that the chances are pretty good that this will be one of the triggers for the rapture. When Solomon was seeking gold and resources from all over the world, even the surrounding countries, the surrounding heathen countries, the pagan countries, would submit to Israel, desiring for Israel to have its temple. It's in the Bible. You can read it. It's quite fascinating how kings from the various countries surrounding Israel would actually bring forth cedar trees and resources and minerals and even gold for the temple. And the totality of gold once reached, which was made available and became available for the temple, was 666, which is also echoing, as we know, Revelation, the number of the beast. And as I said, it's one of the triggers, one of the eventual triggers, because ultimately 144,000 are going to come from the nation of Israel. Now, I can concur that it could come from the nation of Israel scattered all over the world. But it seems to me like those who were brought up without guile in the land, in the actual geographical area of Israel, would be the ones that are the innocent ones, because they're literally brought up, weaned on the Torah. They're weaned on God's law. And it's hard to believe that Jews in other countries like the United States, for instance, or the UK, would have such a guileless, guiltless upbringing, and consequently, it does seem like they are coming directly out of Israel, out of the geographical locale of Israel. So watch this number. It's definitely a trigger point number. 62.05, obviously one of the other triggers which keeps coming up again and again quite regularly is this notion that the enemy is going to try to abominate children under the age of 12. Up to the age of 12, Jesus Christ was kind of doing his own thing at the age of 12. Bar mitzvahs in Israel, 13, 14, really. So that's kind of an age that allows you to make your own decisions about things. 12 is a very young age, and I've seen evidence already of 12-year-olds being abominated. And it's very sad. It's very, very sad. So what we're going to see, I think, is the minute the enemy tries to cordon off and surround and try to get at kids, anything younger than 12 years old, I think that's going to be another trigger point for the rapture. Definitely another trigger for the rapture. And of course, the big one is the war in the Middle East, the single night war that lays waste to the city of Damascus, as in Ezekiel 37, 38. I think that's going to be the very big trigger. I think it was Steve Fletcher, Brother Fletcher, who was saying, Brother Steve, who was saying that what must be happening on the earth around September that is so intense that there is no other way for God to deal with it except to rapture his bride. And that makes a lot of sense, that there's a culminating of events, a convergence of events that are moving in the direction, as I can see, toward what could eventuate into a very brief but very destructive war in the Middle East, the destruction of Damascus in a night, which will start the third WW. So yeah, this is quite intense. But still, these are three very imminent factors that could trigger the rapture. God does not desire for his bride to be stressed. I think she's already stressed, but he's not gonna want her to be tarnished or sullied in any way. I think as soon as, and this is biblical. We're kept from the hour of trial, Revelation 3:10. We're not going to be here to experience the onset of the tribulation, the beginning of the tribulation. So yeah, I thought I'd share that with you because it's such a fascinating set of circumstances that must happen. And my big one, of course, my really big one, which I see it as an overarching reason why the rapture is coming. I mean, there are literally hundreds of reasons, hundreds of scriptures relating to the rapture. Much of what Jesus Christ spoke about, even in terms of his parables, all relate to the rapture, relate to the millennial kingdom, relate to rewards in heaven, relate to the church, basically some of the church going, in other words, the bride, whose lamps are filled with oil. She goes. But the rest of the church, the sleeping church, the lukewarm Christians, who are not right now living for Christ, who are currently asleep, they probably will stay behind, which is scary. But they will minister to those who are yet to come, yet to be Christians. So the big one, as I was saying, is the DNA. That's the big one, the DNA. If it wasn't for DNA, if DNA wasn't at risk right now in the world, if human DNA wasn't being called into question whether it was going to remain as is or was going to be transmogrified, then I'd probably say, yeah, the rapture could be another 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, really. But no, the very fact that there's this onslaught against the human, God's image in man, the human genome, the human genetic makeup, leads me to believe that it has to be something so urgent and so important that God has to take immediate evacuation steps, immediate emergency use, authorization, evacuation steps to basically get the bride off of the earth. And the good news, of course, is, as we know, what happens to the bridegroom when he comes across the bride, when he takes her home for the first time. He lifts her into the air, doesn't he? He lifts her over the threshold before they enter the home. And that to me has always been a beautiful symbol, sign of God picking up his bride off of the face of the earth, lifting her into the air, and carrying her across the threshold into heaven, the Huppah. Thank you for watching.